Fantastic. So you have configured page caching within W3 Total Cache for your website and tested that and seen the profound impact that that makes. You have implemented browser caching for your WordPress website and retested again and seen your grades go up. So now what we want to do is go into database and object caching for your WordPress website. And these are particularly helpful things for very dynamic sites that change quite a bit, and sites that get a lot of comments on their blog posts and whatnot. So as it is with the other caching means, we go into performance and general settings and either click on database or object cache up here or scroll down to it. And database cache is in its own box here, as is object cache. So to enable database cache, you would do that here. And then as it is with page cache, you are given a database cache method. Now, if and how to install opcode caching, you're going to need to get into your server to do that, and that is in the ultra advanced optimization section of the course. So bear in mind though that is ultra advanced. Anyway, if you have opcode installed, or you intend on installing it on your server, or have somebody install it, or you end up installing it anyway, regardless, you're going to have whatever you install will be, you have an option for it here, PHP, Accelerator, etc., etc., etc. It is ideal to use an opcode cache for both database caching as well as object caching. The Y4s of that are really not pertinent. It's the best way to go. So if you have an opcode cacher installed on your server, you're going to want to make use of that. And as you can see, for both database and object cache, we are using alternative PHP cache or APC, and that is the recommended opcode cache, that what I would recommend for you to install on your server if you are in fact going to do that. You can, if you are on a shared server, you can try it. But here's the thing: you remember all those people in your website's home? Well, they're crowding the place and flopping around and eating all your Funyuns. Well, there's simply probably not going to be any Funyuns left for you. And the Funyuns here are the database cache and the object cache. It's very likely, if you're on a shared host in particular, that database caching is simply not going to be possible for you. Object caching, less likely to be impossible, but still highly unlikely that it's going to do anything but make your website slower, because the resources simply aren't there. There's no more Funyuns. They hate your Funyuns. No Funyuns for you. So no database caching and likely no object caching for you. You can try these and then rerun tests and see, you navigate around your site and see what's doing there. But anyway, the long and short of it being that if you're on a shared server, the likelihood of you being able to take advantage of database and even object caching are going to be really pretty slim. If, however, you are on a VPS or dedicated server, you will want to enable each of these and test, do one at a time, and test and see. Get your metrics. You want accurate metrics. If they're not making any difference, don't utilize them. If they do make a difference, then obviously you want to utilize them. Object cache, again, these are really advantageous, especially object cache is more advantageous for extremely dynamic sites that change quite a bit and get a lot of comments, things of that nature. So after you have enabled these, saved your settings, as it is with the others, we'll go into database cache first and particularize it. And out of all of the things that we're doing with W3 Total Cache, this is really the simplest to configure. So this is going to go very quickly. Ideally, you do not want, much for the same reason you don't want to cache pages. You don't want to cache the database either for logged in users. Now, the there's not very much here. So, the maximum lifetime of cached objects in advanced. This is really self-explanatory and user-friendly and doesn't require too much other than me reading these things to you and then particularizing them. The maximum lifetime of cache objects determines the natural expiration time of unchanged cache items. The higher the value, the larger the cache. So in other words, the higher you put this number here, you see it's set at 2 hours. 3600 would be 1 hour. So we keep our database cache in there for 2 hours. So that only refreshes itself every 2 hours. So we have a larger cache than we would otherwise have at 3600 seconds or 1 hour. You want to have your garbage collection interval here matched up with the maximum lifetime of cached objects. And again, this cache, the less your site changes, the less dynamic your site is, really the higher you can go on this. I wouldn't recommend, especially if you're on a shared server and somehow by some minor miracle are able to make use of database caching on your shared server. I would keep this number pretty low. You can choose particular pages that you don't want to use database cache on. For example, if you find that you're having problems with, again, as an example, your WooCommerce checkout pages not looking right or being goofy or serving old information to new people, you would include those pages here. Again, just this last part of the complete URL would go in there and you would save your settings. And ignored query stems. Again, with WooCommerce being our example, you would put those query stems in here. If you don't know what a query stem is, then you're either not using them or you should Google and learn about what a query stem is. And this, of course, does not cache queries that contains these whatever terms we have put in here, whatever query stems we have inserted into this field. Rejected query words. Do not cache queries that contain these words or regular expressions. Again, most of you are not going to have to fiddle with any of this. It's essentially an on or off option. Database caching is. So with that said, let's move, and then of course you would save your settings. And let's check out object cache. You can match up, in the event that you're able to use both database and object cache. You can, a good rule of thumb is that you can match up the default lifetime of cached objects and garbage collection removal interval. You can have the exact same numbers in here as you did with your database cache. Groups shared amongst sites in network mode. If you're using WordPress in network mode, your global groups will be entered in here if you're making use of object cache. And the non-persistent groups that should not be cached in the object cache. I need to say some things here in particular about object cache as far as troubleshooting goes. Object cache within W3 Total Cache is notorious for causing strange issues as you're trying to make changes to your website. In other words, if you make a change and then attempt to preview that change, you get an old version because there's no easy and a really effective way either of turning object caching off within WordPress admin here. So you're caching objects within your WP admin, whereas with database caching, you have the option here to not cache the database for logged in users. That is not present for object caching. So if you enable this and are able to make use of it, and it actually makes a difference for your performance after you test enabling it, and if in that event you are experiencing issues as you are adding posts or pages or whatever, and then attempting to preview that, and you're getting funky results. Object cache is more than likely the culprit, and you will want to disable it. Again, it is really only advantageous anyway for extremely dynamic sites and sites that change quite a bit. So there you have database caching as well as object caching, which concludes the section. I do hope you are taking the quizzes at the ends of these sections. They really will help reinforce in your mind the general principles and also let you know exactly what you are retaining, what you need to work on, and what you may need to ask me about. And your feedback in that regard will also help me improve the course over the course of time. So on with section 6, where we will deal with minification and concatenation.